One Question is brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996. Very happy to be joined on One Question by the brains behind and now the voice behind at Sports TV Ratings. One of the most interesting and compelling, in my view, Twitter accounts out there and websites. Robert Seidman of at Sports TV Ratings is with us on One Question, and been trying to catch up with Robert for quite some time, but been following his work. And Robert, I think it would be useful for the One Question audience and those in college athletics to understand the jumping off point of how your service started and what its niche was and where it has evolved from there over the years.
Sure. So in 2007, with a friend of mine, Bill Gorman, I co-founded a website called tvbythenumbers.com, which Bill and I ran for about 7 years. And then we sold it to Tribune. And once we sold it, I kind of just wanted to have a little entree to stick around with the web publishing world and to get to play around with that stuff a little bit. So I started sportstvratings.com and initially and pretty much for the whole time until late April of this year, from like November 2017 to from November 2014 to late April 2017. I posted daily viewership in adults 18 to 49 viewing for all of the cable sports networks. So basically, I just posted tables with, all the shows that were on ESPN, ESPN2, ESPNU, Fox Sports 1, Fox Sports 2, NBCSN, et cetera. That was kind of a handy and easy little thing for me to do to keep my web experimenting going. And also, what I was hoping to do was come up with some sort of easy daily way to provide what I thought would be a useful service. And the reason I thought it would be useful is that there's various constituencies in the sports world, both on the fans, both among fans and among the business side. And a lot of there weren't a lot of places where, you could find, say, what the ratings for garbage time on FS1 were. And so by virtue of posting the tables, kind of everything that was available was in those tables. And I wish that I was still getting the data that I could produce them, but sadly I'm not. So when I was winding that down, I knew I wasn't going to be able to stick with posting the tables because I simply didn't have the data to do it. But I really did enjoy both the stuff I was doing on sportstvratings.com and on at Sports TV Ratings on Twitter. I enjoyed it a lot. I enjoyed the contacts I made, people like you, on-air talent, various people in sports media. And I just, wanted to figure out if I could hold on to some of the fun aspects of it. And so I figured, well, you know what, let me see if I can start podcasting and get any good at that. And so I've been podcasting now, I think, since, around you first. I'm still not very good at it, but so far I think my guests have been great. So despite not being great at it, I think I'm putting out something that at least if you're a sports media enthusiast, you will find interesting.
Well, I think you're underselling yourself on 2 points. One is you weren't just posting tables and numbers. You were also giving some comparative statistics and doing a bit of analysis as well on year-over-year trending, multi-year trending, and clearly, as we dive into this conversation more, that stuff for those of us in college athletics, as we're talking about ratings for, say, SEC on CBS or certainly the college football playoff, is really important to the trajectory of the business side of college athletics. So you're underselling yourself there a little bit. But the other side is to promote your podcast, which you call the world's fastest growing sports media podcast. Of course, it's a bit of a dig at Fox and some of their branding, Fox Sports, some of their branding the last couple of years. You've had some awesome guests. You've had Richard Deitsch from Sports Illustrated, Anthony Krupe from Ad Age. I think Anthony is one of the most underrated analysts and writers in the business of sports. And of course, he has a absolutely hilarious Twitter feed himself. You've had Orand, you've had John from SBJ. You've had some great guests, man.
Yeah, and I hope I certainly plan on having Anthony and Richard and Orion and Carp from SBJ back on. They have all been great. I agree, and I hopefully that they will put up with me pestering them to have them on every once in a while.
Well, I'm going to keep pestering you to make this this Rich and Eric Jackson matchup a reality, because that would be true. Although you have one coming with Eric, right?
So I just to clarify, he's talking about Rich BTIG at Rich BTIG on Twitter. Rich Greenfield, I think, who is a big proponent of all the things that are disrupting the TV business, and is kind of bearish in his tweeting anyway on ESPN, while Eric Jackson is pretty bullish on ESPN. So I had the idea of getting those two together. I'm not sure if I'll be able to pull that off, but I am actually taping on Friday this week with Richard Deitch and Eric Jackson. So I'm going to have a little media roundtable with those two guys. Wrong Rich in this case for you, but I'm getting there.
Yeah, no. So Greenfield, of course, is famous for his hashtag Good Luck Bundle, I think.
Good Luck
right.
Bundle.
Yeah, right. And he takes shots at ESPN. And look, in some ways, it makes sense. We all know that some of where ESPN could be going is troublesome, of course, for those of us in college athletics. But Eric Jackson has also, who's an activist investor and media analyst, he's made some compelling arguments that I've included in D1 Ticker in his podcast and in written form on Forbes about the financial situation.
And now CNBC.
Yeah, right. Now CNBC. Good point. And he's really painted an interesting picture financially of the moat that Disney, ESPN has built with sports rights, and why they may do certain deals in the future and may not do certain deals. And we'll talk about that a little bit today. So great work with the podcast, and keep it up. And we were talking offline about the challenges of learning how to do this thing. And I don't claim to be any expert, but once you figure something out that works, you just keep going with it. So it's compelling content. I'm quite sure many people who are listening to this also listen to your stuff and others. And certainly I included in D1 Ticker when it's interesting, which is quite often. Let's dive in on in a broad kind of 30,000 foot topic, but I think there's some education kind of still needed here, because one of the narratives that is dominant around ESPN right now, of course, is subscriber attrition, subscriber losses. And I think most people understand, of course, the mechanics of a monthly fee that the cable provider pays to Disney that then filters down, of course, the subscriber, and how those numbers can really add up, and the monthly and annual losses that ESPN has seen there. However, that's roughly maybe 2/3 of ESPN's overall revenue. And then there's this, big basket of the other third, which is advertising sales. So in your view, Robert, why should college athletics leaders be just as interested in ratings points as they are in subscription trends?
So I'm just going to start with, I'm not sure if I actually agree with that premise, particularly in the short run. So here right now, the number one thing I would be focused on, and I'm not posting these anymore either, and I used to, and I probably will again, is the number of households that each of the cable channels is available in. I think today, because 2/3 or more of the revenue is coming from the affiliate fees, and probably only 1/3 or less is coming from the advertising. That number is the number of households that a network is getting, a network like ESPN, and how much the affiliate fee is a really big deal. The ratings are still a really big deal too, but the ratings analysis is a little bit trickier, because there's a propensity for people to try to compare things to how were things doing 5 years ago. And the problem with the ratings, and particularly in the current TV landscape, the landscape has changed and evolving so much and so rapidly, and people are watching in different ways, and they're getting their parents watch ESPN password, and all these kind of things are happening now that weren't really going on even 5 years ago, at least not in any volume. Comparing like how did SEC on CBS do, and with the Army Navy game in 2016 versus 2010 is a dangerous game to play. But the good news is that the college sports are so vibrant, particularly college football, that they wind up having a lot of good stories to tell. So I don't have this data in front of me, but I think the Army Navy game last year was one of the highest rated Army Navy games for CBS in ages, and so it's a good thing to keep your eye on. But then when you get into like how much does this game on ESPN2 on Thursday night do versus even 2 or 3 years ago, I think you have to be careful with overreacting to what you might see there.
Yeah, the overreaction is arguably something we saw with NFL ratings last year, and I know that some of those you've talked to, like Richard Deitch, fully believe that the NFL ratings will bounce back this year, given the political situation and other factors, and certainly the NFL seems to have been proactive in their aggressive approach to scheduling, and the Cowboys are playing umpteen times in premier slots. But right. I do agree with your point about overreaction. The issue with subscriber losses is certainly clear and present. To me, that one's just easier to understand. And when we talk about ratings points and how it's sold on a national level and what make goods are and where money goes if you don't meet a certain projection on a game rating and how that can impact sales for a network down the road. And of course, I'm kind of thinking about the college football playoff championship game and semifinals. I guess that was 2 seasons ago. I think that's a little bit more of not black magic, but it's an unknown art to a degree to a lot of people, maybe in college athletics. Let's weave into, stay on topic, of course, college athletics, but we know that there's this window of, say, 2023 through 25, where I think you have, the Big Ten's up, the Big 12's up, everything under the Pac-12 umbrella is up. But preceding that, and I think I'm curious of your opinion on how this will impact the college rights. Preceding that, you have Major League Baseball comes up with ESPN.
NFL.
You have NFL, right, and NBA, and key NFL packages and NBA. How do you see those two playing into each other? Once we know what ESPN commits to, do you think we'll have a bit of a barometer on how much money or how much bandwidth they have to play with to go grab some college rights 2 or 3 years later?
Certainly, but I mean, there's a couple of aspects to this that nobody talks about. So my prediction, kind of along the lines of what John Orient said when I had him on my podcast, was he actually sees in the near term rights being more valuable than ever, and I agree with that, and kind of for a simple reason. I get a question I'll frame this way quite often, which is, how is it that in a world where ratings are going down, advertising revenue keeps going up? And this happens in a number of ways, whether it's broadcast prime time or whether it's sports or whatever. So you'll see the NFL ratings were down last year, but the NFL revenue and advertising revenue for the TV networks was up. How does that happen? Well, I can't exactly answer the question, but observationally, and people don't talk about this, and even people like Krupe don't really talk about it. Observationally, advertisers value scarcity hugely, and so what's happening is that people that are adults under the age of 50. So the big demographic is 18 to 49, and then within that demographic, the subset that people will call millennials, the 18 to 34. They're getting scarcer and scarcer as a commodity on in terms of eyeballs watching television, and so because they are scarce, they are highly valued, and because they are highly valued, and it doesn't matter if NFL ratings are a little bit down, NFL is still the biggest game in town. So if you want to reach males 18 to 34, NFL and college football are probably still the best ways to do that, and as long as that's the case, the eyeballs world, the universe of total eyeballs can shrink a bit, but the value can actually still keep going up a while. Another side of this is people don't seem to get the fact. A lot of people don't seem to get the fact that ESPN is still a huge profit monster. So it's not as huge of a profit monster as it was 3 years ago. That's true, but it's still hugely, hugely profitable. And ESPN and the shareholders of Disney won't be happy about it, but the shareholders of Disney aren't going to be happy unless ESPN can show growth. And let's face it, we're not in the age of growth for the TV age, and so you're not going to see. You're not going to. Let me clarify. I will be very surprised if you ever see ESPN adds 5 million households. In 2017, could happen, but I'm betting against that sort of good news happening. And so in the shrinking world, ESPN could say, well, you know what? We still have plenty of money. We could actually still, we won't make as much profit, but we can still buy this stuff. And so I think the assumptions around how much money is available for rights over, say, the next 5 years anyway, are maybe too low from a lot of people. I think, Eric Jackson and others, I have had what I would consider very reasonable worldviews about how all that will shake out. But a lot of people are predicting gloom and doom. And maybe they're right, but I'm just not. As long as TV is sort of the best place to corner the market on a bunch of young adult eyeballs, I don't see the value of those rights going down.
Yeah, no, I subscribe to that as well. And the explanation of the intertwining between TV advertising opportunities and the actual advertisers who gobble up and spend hundreds of millions via the medium every year. I didn't create this myself or think of this myself. I wouldn't even dare to say I'm smart enough. But Stratechery's Ben Thompson, who I'm sure you've heard of.
Oh, yeah.
My gosh, you need to get him on your podcast. That would be amazing.
I do. I agree.
Yeah, he would be fantastic. And if Thompson's talking sports, that's a must listen. But the way he describes it, of course, is there are certainly advertisers in the ecosystem. So let's say the auto brands out there or the credit brands out there, the CPG companies are probably the best example of this, that they their business model relies on national scale. And the most effective way, even with subscriber losses, the most effective way to still do that and have national scale from an advertising standpoint is through TV. So they will continue to pay for advertising on TV just as much as you noted, ESPN. We think ESPN and the like will continue to pay increased rights fees because it's so central to their existing business model. And I think that makes sense to me. But and that really, the follow-up question for you is, and you've been following this stuff for so long, where would you point to as the death of primetime scripted? Right, or for that matter, primetime unscripted, Robert. Because American Idol was this behemoth for years, and then it went away, and the ratings went under double digits or whatever. Can you describe that in in a nutshell how that happened? And clearly we know part of it is Amazon and Netflix spending billions on original content and talent for their own growth.
So I'm going to push back on that narrative. So I think the whole reason I think Netflix originals and Amazon originals are nice for them from a PR perspective, but from an on-demand content availability perspective, the reason Netflix is so successful is the huge library of shows that Netflix didn't make that come from the CBSs, the NBCs, and Foxes, and all those people. And so the biggest value in those services, at least so far, it's not the originals. You won't see Netflix put out the stat that says what percentage of their viewership is for stuff that they made, and the reason is because it's not that big. It's big in the media. The media loves Orange is the New Black. Netflix is the TV killer or whatever. But the biggest success of Netflix is and I did not add movies. Movies is obviously a big part. Are the movies and TV shows? The huge library of movies and TV shows that they did not actually make, and that creates an on-demand system for people. You don't need to watch TV. You don't need a DVR. You don't need anything special. You just need Netflix, and you've got a huge binge library at your fingertips. So I think that's important when you think about Netflix. But as far as the death of TV, I don't know when peak TV was exactly. maybe peak TV in terms of viewership. Maybe it was the 80s or 90s. But really, since I don't know, late 1970s, from a share perspective, broadcast network television, that's ABC, CBS, Fox, NBC, the CW, and then on Spanish language, Univision, Telemundo, and others, that they have the capability to get to you, not just through the cable or the satellite or the telephone line, but just with the over-the-air antenna. They've seen their business in a 3-decade plus decline with the launch, primarily with the launch of cable TV. So for years, cable TV, and still, I mean, if you look at I can pull it up for last night or the night before, but I mean, generally speaking, on any given night, particularly in the summer, most of the TV viewing, it's not happening on ABC, CBS, NBC, and Fox. It's happening on cable stations.
Right. And so to tie this thing together from an advertising standpoint, the decrease in scripted and or unscripted prime, and again, I'll go back to American Idol. Correct me if I'm wrong here, that the share of the marketplace that day part no longer has means that advertisers are looking for places for high impact. And this even goes for females, of course, which, we read last year during the NFL that many advertisers who are focused on females were pouring more money into NFL because they don't have prime options anymore, right? Yep.
Yeah. I mean, so the number of shows that do scale, with, in recent history with young adults, it's pretty much, Empire, The Walking Dead, and the Game of Thrones, which doesn't even have any advertising, so it doesn't count.
Right.
And sports. So I mean, that's the reason that I don't think Thursday night football will ever go away, no matter what the ratings are. And the reason is because CBS and NBC certainly, and I think Fox would maybe make a run on it if it could. They're not going to want to get rid of it because whatever their options are, they're not going to have a scale option in the fall that's better than Thursday night football.
And that's today's One Question, brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996. One Question is designed to give D1 Ticker subscribers valuable insights on how executive leaders in college athletics think about key issues on their respective campuses, in their departments, or within their leagues and conferences. One Question is brought to you by Turnkey Search, a top industry search firm since 1996.